Hi, I'm Kate Rose. I'm a rising senior at the Loyola School in Manhattan, New York. I've been active in congressional debates since my freshman year. Now, I'm really excited to get to be a part of Break the Ceiling and its mission to provide equal opportunities for all. Now, what I want to do today is to provide a basic overview of some of the domestic bills for NSDAs in congressional debate. Our first bill today is a bill to ban direct-to-consumer advertising for prescription drugs. Let's start by defining direct-to-consumer advertising. This is advertisements for prescription drugs that are directed at the general public, not those in the medical field. If you need to think of an example, think of Cymbalta or Lipitor. It's also important to remember that the United States is one of few countries that still allows direct-to-consumer advertising. Now, the argument here is actually pretty basic. Do these advertisements help to inform patients, and are they worth the cost? Where would the money go if they weren't going to these advertisements? The negation is going to argue that these advertisements misinform patients, downplay the risk involved with certain drugs, and use money that could go to other places, such as research and development. The affirmative is going to argue that these advertisements help to make more thoughtful and aware patients so that they know what they're going into with their treatment. This argument boils down to who can better prove their point. Our second bill is a resolution to ban plastic bags. The issue here is a long-heard one. Plastic bags are bad for the environment. And recently, there's been a movement to actually ban the use of plastic bags. The city of Austin has already ended the usage of plastic bags, and places such as Evanston are starting to phase out their use of plastic bags. However, a negative argument does still exist here. The negative can prove that plastic bags are not actually bad for the environment by bringing up statistics of reusing, recycling, and the actual environmental impact from the production of plastic bags versus the production of the alternatives of cotton bags and paper bags. Our third bill is a bill to make women's oral contraceptive available without a prescription. However, before we begin to talk about this specific bill, we need some background information. And for this, we have to go back to last summer's Supreme Court case decision on the Hobby Lobby versus Sebelius case. In this case, it gave corporations the right to exempt themselves from parts of the Affordable Care Act due to religious beliefs. In this specific case, it gave Hobby Lobby, a craft store, the ability to exempt itself from birth control coverage for its female employees. This brought up the debate of accessibility of birth control in today's day and age. And this is why today's legislation comes into play. Would birth control be more accessible if it was an over-the-counter? Now, the affirmative argues that this is important because without having to see a doctor, go through health insurance, it's going to make it that more women can get birth control. However, the negation is going to argue that women need to see a doctor because they need to have that information and that source to go to for follow-ups. Also, they argue that by making it over-the-counter, they actually make it more expensive for women as you no longer have health insurance subsidies. Our fourth bill is a resolution to combat the global energy crisis to construct more nuclear energy plants in the United States. But let's start with the basics of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is based off of nuclear fission. When a nucleus of an atom is split into two, it releases a lot of energy. This is the energy that is used in nuclear power. However, this is created at high temperatures and high pressures, and there is waste created in the process, but we don't know exactly what to do with. Now, the affirmative is going to argue that nuclear energy is a perfect solution for our energy issue because it's long-lasting, it has low pollution, and it's very efficient. However, the negation is going to bring up, one, we have an issue with nuclear waste. We don't exactly know what to do with it. And two, nuclear energy is slightly dangerous because when things go wrong, they go really wrong. For an example, look to Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. Our fifth bill is a bill to make vaccines required for children entering public schools. Now, after Disneyland stopped being the happiest place on earth after a measles outbreak, it brought up an issue. Should vaccines be mandated by the government? Now, the affirmative argues that vaccines need to be used by everyone, as if it's not, it compromises the strength of the vaccines. And they argue that vaccines are efficient and safe. However, the negation worries on the two issues, civil liberties and the risks that go along with vaccines. On the line of civil liberties, they argue that by mandating vaccines, it infringes on a person's personal freedom. Also, it doesn't take into account that there are exceptions to the rule, such as those who are allergic to things in the vaccines. But second, on the line of risk of vaccines, those who argue against this and on this line worry that vaccines can bring along other medical issues, such as autism and peanut allergies. Our sixth bill is a bill to require all armed patrolmen to wear a camera while on duty. Michael Brown, Eric Garner. The list of names sadly goes on, and this has spurred the discussion of how to reform the police force so that they protect all people, not just some, and while doing this, still protecting the policemen who are doing their jobs morally and ethically. Now, the affirmative on today's legislation are going to argue that by having cameras, it erases the gray space in cases such as Michael Brown's. No longer is there he said, she said. There's definitive proof in a video on a camera. It also makes environments safer due to having more oversight through this camera. However, the negative will bring up that these cameras aren't perfect, and there's a whole slew of issues that goes along with them, such as when do the cameras get turned on, and that the camera is located on the policeman's body. It still doesn't give quite the right perception or perspective that's needed. It only shows from his point of view. Our final bill is a bill to implement a national sick day policy. The issue here is everyone gets sick, but not everyone has time to recover. Today's legislation works to create paid sick day leaves for all employees, not just some. Now, the affirmative is going to argue that when you give people time to recover, it leads to a healthy work staff who's more efficient, and you have a lower worker turnover rate. However, the negation is going to argue that this is going to hurt companies and businesses, specifically those small businesses, and it's also going to open up doors to being abused. That's all from me today. I really hope this helps in your nationals prep. If you have any questions, my email is 715katerose@gmail.com. I really hope to get to meet a lot of you next week at Nationals in Dallas. Good luck.